there's a recent trade idea that was floated out by Brett Siegel, an NBA reporter, that would send Nikola Vucevic to the Golden State Warriors. Is this a viable option, and does it actually help both sides? We'll talk about all and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And so, late night video here. I guess not too late when it all said and done, but we got a rumor that is kind of making its ways around. And this came out yesterday from Brett Siegel, from Clutch Points, and he pointed out that floated a rumor around that the Golden State Warriors and the Chicago Bulls could look to do a deal built around sending Nikola Vucevic and Torrey Craig to the Golden State Warriors for Moses Moody, Gary Payton II, and Kevon Looney. Now, this is a trade that I think could make sense in a couple of different ways. Again, it's something to monitor. Not necessarily a trade rumor more than a trade idea floated around by an NBA insider, so always take these with a grain of salt. But we know that the Bulls are open to trading Nikola Vucevic. The biggest question is what would they be looking to get back if they do move on from Vooch? And that's the question that everybody's asking here. Now, in this type of deal, getting back Moses Moody, Gary Payton II, and Kevon Looney makes a little bit of sense for the Chicago Bulls in a few different ways. Now, this is the Bulls taking back an extra player that I think that we don't have the roster spot to take on. But this is a deal that I think would only come if the Chicago Bulls are also going to trade Zach LaVine. Not saying that the Bulls are necessarily waiting to move Vooch till the LaVine deal gets done, but when you look at the number of guards that we're bringing back, this is already a guard-deep team. I think everybody understands that this team, the Chicago Bulls, we have a plethora of guards here. And so if you're sending out a Zach LaVine and maybe another guard or whatever and bringing back Moses Moody, Gary Payton II, and Kevon Looney, that makes a little bit of sense there, right? Looney, who maybe then would be able to back up Jalen Smith, who would become the starting center there. You know, maybe the Bulls look to bring up Adama Sanogo, whoever else. But the thing that I like about this deal, if it were to happen, is not necessarily just the players, is the money aspect. We've talked a lot about how the Chicago Bulls have put themselves in a situation where they can have cap flexibility. Both Gary Payton II and Kevon Looney are unrestricted free agents at the end of the season. And considering Vooch would have one more year left on his deal, that frees up even more money for the Bulls. Now, we all know that the Bulls probably aren't going to be free agent destinations anytime soon. So it's not about necessarily getting that money to then go out and spend it on a big-time free agent. It's about preparing for the contract extensions of Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu, the part that I like about this the most, right? That could free up the Bulls to go ahead and extend Ayo Dosunmu and Coby White, who would be eligible for early extensions at that time, as well as Josh Giddey, who is a restricted free agent that same offseason. Now, Moses Moody, who may be looked at as the prize in this type of trade, is also a restricted free agent at the end of the year, and his cap hold is, I think, around $17 million. So you would be looking then to see what are you going to do with Moses Moody. But this gives the Bulls even more flexibility. Moses Moody, who is 22 years old, the youngest piece in this trade for sure, is that even if the Bulls look at Moses Moody, who's 6'5", 211 pounds, as maybe not part of their long-term future, because he's not better than Coby, he's not better than Ayo, but he is a player that still has tremendous upside, a 36% three-point shooter over the course of his career so far, 46% overall from the field. Last season was his best year, scoring 8 points per game, playing 66 games, starting nine of those games. Also, you know, not really any other stats. 3 rebounds as a guard. That actually is a pretty damn good number there, right? So that's what you're kind of looking at in that case. Like, is Moses Moody the type of player that maybe can play into your future if you want some depth at guard? Now, if you don't, right, and that's perfectly fine, then you can let him go and restricted free agent. At that point, you're getting basically 3 expiring contracts for Nikola Vucevic in a year where he would have had another year left on his deal. This would be one of the smarter deals that AK and Eversley have made. Now, as a starter, Moses Moody last season actually did pretty damn good. 24 minutes per game as a starter, 12 points on 51% shooting and 39.5% shooting from 3, taking a solid number of 4.5 threes per game there. Also as a starter, almost 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, almost a steal, and a half a block per game, whilst turning the ball over less than 1 turnovers per game. So there is some upside there to Moses Moody that could play in that the Bulls could look at. And again, what we've seen with the Bulls doing in like Kenny Lofton Jr., even with Jalen Smith, is that while you're getting younger, if you get another opportunity for a bite at the apple at a young player that could turn into more for you, that's kind of what you want to do when you're in the stage of going younger and focusing more on player development. So that could be something that also plays into the Chicago Bulls' role here. Now, in no way am I saying that this is a trade that is on the precipice of happening. Not saying that at all. I think also when you look at the fact, the motivation for the Golden State Warriors, the fact that they just gave Steph Curry that extension that now holds him there until the summer of 2027. We know that they're probably going to try to compete there or they're going to move him, right? There's been some rumors about the Lakers could be a destination. I don't think that that's the case. But let's say if this team is gearing up and trying to go on a run, right, to try to go on another run while Steph Curry is still playing really good. I wouldn't say he's at the height of his powers, but still playing extremely well. Maybe that's the case. Now, the question is that Vooch wouldn't have to shoot a lot of threes here, right? We know that wouldn't happen. You have to ask yourself, how well would Nikola Vucevic pair with Kuminga, who is definitely up and coming for that Golden State Warriors team as well? And that's a question that maybe the Golden State Warriors feel with their system and their coaching that they're ready to do. Now, we all know that Vooch isn't the best defender, right? Now, you still have Draymond Green there. You still have Trace Jackson Davis. So Vooch maybe coming off the bench in a case like that. Maybe you start him and put Trace back on the bench. He's 24 years old, though. I think at that point, even though he's 6'9", 245 pounds, you may want to go ahead and keep starting him. So that would be for them to figure out. But this is one of the trade scenarios that I look at and say, this isn't hugely outside the realm of possibility, but here's something that it could interest. Now, keep an eye on this. Like I said, if this type of deal were to happen, to me, this would only be a secondary trade after you move on from Zach LaVine and finally make that decision. And we'll see what happens there. But, I look at this and I say, more guards. I know Bulls fans are already kind of like, what are we going to do with all these guards? We still got Chris Duarte and those other players that we're trying to get into the rotation. But I think if this trade were to happen, for example, with moving Zach LaVine, and you free up that 3, maybe Modest Bucilis moves into that 3 role, you then have a little bit more minutes to get off your bench. You're still going to be an extremely small lineup at that point in time. But then, like I said, the fact is that if you're getting Moses Moody in this trade, that could be somebody that you're kind of looking at and saying, let's see what we can get out of him. Maybe he can be part of this new young direction that we're going, and we'll see what we can extract out of it long term. Again, this is just an interesting scenario to look at. I thought it would be an interesting topic to bring here, but not kind of really for a full daily episode. But let me know what you guys think on this. Nikola Vucevic is a player that I know a lot of Bulls fans are over. And I know a lot of Bulls fans are ready to move on from Vooch because of the lack of defense, the going younger. He doesn't fit kind of getting the up and down style, the lack of pick and roll defense. So if it came down to this type of trade, even though it would net the Bulls even more guards on a guard-heavy team, what do you think about it? Let me know all that down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.